Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Gaming. I'm Nathan, and I'm going to take up this game's with your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Scorn. In development hell for years, Scorn has finally made it out into the wild. Was this H.R. Giger-inspired horror puzzle game worth the wait? Scorn is currently available on PC and Xbox, though it will be coming to PlayStation at some point in the future. And on Xbox, it's only available on Series consoles. You can currently play it for free on Xbox Game Pass, or you can pay $40 for it, and the game will last you about 6 to 8 hours long, depending on how good you are at puzzles. So what exactly is Scorn? Well, it's a horror walking simulator with an emphasis on its insane body horror visual design, its difficult puzzles, and its combat, which is, well, we'll get to that. You play as some guy thing. Look, all I know is he's male, and I don't want to get into how I learned that, but basically you're journeying through a disgusting hell world of metal and flesh to try to do something. Look, the game isn't exactly story-rich, it's all about its themes and atmosphere, okay? Essentially, you will be going through 5 acts, which are each large puzzle zones that generally have one key door to open or obstacle to overcome, and every smaller puzzle or instance within that zone feeds on that final goal. The difficulty of these puzzles is sporadic at best and is intentionally very obtuse, meaning exploration will be necessary in order to piece together first how everything works before you can start actually solving the puzzle itself, as the game gives 0 hints. About halfway through the game, combat takes a more prominent role, and then you'll be given a small arsenal of weapons. I hesitate to give them real-world names as they're all just fleshy, gross things, but you have essentially a prodding melee weapon, a pistol, a shotgun, and a final weapon of a grenade launcher. These weapons have very limited ammo and are generally fairly slow to use, making combat a more methodical affair. Of course, the star of the game is its absolutely disgusting visuals, disgusting in a good way. That mixes flesh, steel, and viscera in some absolutely horrifying combinations, starting with ribbed alien-esque pathways into fleshy halls, and what can only be described as red alien testicles. Scorn's clear focus is on its visuals. And that's basically it. Scorn is an atmospheric horror experience with some brutally hard puzzles, brutally bad combat, and fantastic visual design. So what do I like about Scorn? Well, the art design is downright inspired, with it drawing on inspiration from Giger, but also infusing it with a good amount of their own original ideas and designs that all synchronize together fairly well. Additionally, the game is just genuinely unsettling in the best way horror games should be, with almost no jump scares and instead a pervasive, uncomfortable atmosphere around every corner and in every new zone. And lastly, I'm going to give another bullet point to this game's visual design, animations, and particularly its sound design. Everything in this game is just so ridiculously creative, like the way you change weapons and their reload animations are so bizarre and gross. I just can't help but love it. When it comes to the bad, the game's combat is already infamous in how garbage it is, and I have to agree, it does not add anything to the experience and is only frustrating, especially the boss battle near the end. They could have cut the combat and the game probably would have been better. Additionally, many of the puzzles are too obtuse in their design, and this is coming from the guy who loves myths and games with obscure puzzles. It additionally doesn't help that they're poorly paced. The first puzzle is much harder than the second puzzle, and some of the later puzzles are clearer than the earlier puzzles. It does make the game feel a little amateurish. And lastly, the game has a lot of content that will definitely squig people out, from body horror, gross stuff, to horrific gore, plenty of phallic imagery, and more. I personally love this stuff because I have serious problems, but consider this a content warning, and do not let your kids play this game. As you know, I rate games here on a 3-point scale: must play, maybe consider, don't bother, and this is actually a pretty hard one to rate. I am going to say maybe consider, and now I know that this game is already super polarizing. I completely understand why. It is a fantastic visual feast paired with some mediocre puzzles and some absolutely garbage combat. Because of that, you have to consider every rating for this game fairly subjective, because it depends on your tolerance for bad gameplay being made up for by impressive and incredible visual design. For me, that was more than enough of a motivator to get through this game, but if the setting isn't doing it for you, the gameplay isn't going to do it for you either, and you should probably avoid it. Regardless, that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Have you played Scorn? I am really curious what my viewers think about this game, because it definitely feels like the most polarizing game released this year, so please be sure to let me know in the comments. And if you haven't tried it and you have Game Pass, you might as well go give it a shot.